Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from number 3 all the way down to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a suggestion, please shoot us a little note, message, Twitter, email. You know all the different places to find us. Shoot us a message of your top 3. Actually, somebody suggested something on top 3 this week on Twitter, and I cannot remember who it was. And I have to go back, and it was from, I think, Tuesday, because it was the morning that I was like asking people for like Ask Me Anything stuff. And somebody mentioned something that it would be a really good top 3. Anyway, you can find us at all of those places. This week, we're discussing top 3 vacation locations. So, I didn't qualify this with anything. I didn't say you had to have been there or anything like that. So we could have some really interesting results to this week. Who's willing to go first or wants to go first this time?
Yeah, I mean, I can start up. That's fine.
Nice. All right. Beard, what's your number 3 vacation location?
Well, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of travel myself, but I figured I would just go over the stuff that at least I have been to and have enjoyed for myself. So just top 3 for places I visited, I guess you could say at that point. My number 3, though, has to at least get onto this list. It's definitely not quite as relaxing as it used to be, but I went there every year when I was a child because it pretty well was a really easy place for the family to go to vacation. Mm-hmm. And it was also just really good to get to know a little bit more about American history and a few other pieces about like between American history, between foreign history, to know every little bits and piece that kind of like went into it. But that's Gettysburg. Gettysburg National Military Park is still one of my favorite places to just go to relax in a lot of ways. Mostly because of the amount of information I kind of know of behind the place, but also just because there are a lot of for me at least, I like to look over monuments and whatnot to at least kind of like know what's going on with troop movements, to also know like what's going on with how people were affected or how the war affected them, etc. I've been to a few different places, like obviously Gettysburg, Antietam. We did Fredericksburg, Petersburg, and a few others. A lot of burgs. You don't really realize like how many burgs were fought in the American Civil War, but there were a lot. Anyway, yeah, that's at least number 3 for me. That's one of the better places for me to just kind of go relax and have some fun memories when I was a kid.
Awesome. Blue?
Number 3 for me, honestly, is similar to Beard's. Is a place that we went growing up. We went every year. Would be Estes Park. Estes Park.
Yay!
Yeah, it's seriously one of.
It's gorgeous.
It's a beautiful place, and it's super super relaxing. And it's just, I have a lot of fond memories of the summer cabin that we would often stay at growing up. And so just like wanting to share that with my own family, really is just something that, has been kind of on my mind. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I would feel remiss if I didn't have that on the list.
Estes Park is probably one of my favorite places to go. I currently live about an hour from Estes. And so on the weekends, Julie and I, when we're driving around, that's kind of where we end up going a lot of the times just because of how pretty it is. And it's really neat to be on top of the world at 13,000 feet.
I was about to say, because it is. I think isn't it the highest? Is that,
it is the highest road.
Pikes Peak, right?
No, Pikes Peak's down by Colorado Springs.
Okay. But Pikes Peak is the highest, right? Isn't that the...
Yes.
Okay.
But the road that you drive through in Estes when you go through Rocky Mountain National Park is the highest elevation road in the U.S.
And speaking of that, actually, Estes Park is like it's butted up against the Rocky Mountain National Park. And that
Yes.
as a kid growing up was just, I mean, it was awesome because
It's really cool.
just, I mean, Rocky National Park is just, it's just an amazingly well put together area.
Hmm. But yeah, that is definitely, it's not one of my favorite vacation spots necessarily, because I've never technically vacationed there, but it is one of my favorite places to go. Mine is actually, I think, a little bit more closer to Beards than yours was, because my number 3 is Washington, D.C. And I got to go there when I was in college with my college choir, and we sang on the White House lawn, which was kind of
Nice.
cool. Didn't get to see the president. It would have been George Bush at the time, George Bush Jr., but did get to sing there and hang out in the mall and everything. It's really neat.
Tourist point for DC. If you go to DC, the requirement that I have always told people is you have to go to the Holocaust Museum.
Yes.
And simply out of like both respect and just as a way to educate yourself of what exactly, what that was all about.
And now I'm blanking on the name of the cemetery. Arlington. You should really go to Arlington. Technically, Arlington is not in DC. It's its own little city next to it, smashed up against it, but you really should go there. Yes. I made a mad dash while I was there to be able to see that.
Pins is calling out Vietnam Memorial as well. There's a lot of memorials, but I mean, I will be completely honest. Like, I went to the Holocaust Museum as a kid, and I still can remember vividly what I experienced there. What's that, like 20 years later now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that sticks with you, and that's the point, really. And I mean, that's the point of it.
If there's something that you want to go to that is not, there's plenty of science museums. Yeah. There's also Library of Congress. There's really deep stuff you can go and do. That is there's so much of that kind of thing there. But there's also all the different Smithsonians. I did get to go to Air and Space, which was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, DC is a ton of fun. There's no limit to how many different things you can go and see there. Tip, though, do not drive. Because they have lanes that switch directions halfway through the day based on traffic. So if you do not want to be really confused as to what the heck is going on, do not drive. Ride the bus in or ride the subway in, and you'll be okay. Beard, what's your number 2?
Number 2 is going to actually be when I visited my sister in California, and that was to San Diego. I don't know what it is about San Diego, because I've been to, and granted, I've never been to a West Coast city before that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not like New York. I do not like Philadelphia.
Philly is dirty.
Yeah. I don't necessarily like Tampa that much either.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that too.
But there's just something about San Diego that it just felt like it was a little bit more inviting. And though there are tall buildings that are around you, of course, especially like downtown around the convention center, which is what I was primarily there for because it was Comic-Con time. The biggest thing that I just liked about it was like the way that everybody was very, generally speaking, everybody was very nice. Everybody was very welcoming. But you could go to a place and there would be places that just felt like they weren't that noisy. It didn't really feel like a city necessarily. So that was one thing that was very off-putting about going to it. And of course, there's the nightlife and everything like that too. It felt like it was definitely alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate San Diego quite a bit. I would actually love it if I could go back and visit at one point or another. But yeah, that's definitely my number 2. I was also able to breathe out there. Very different from East Coast air because for some reason I didn't have sinus problems.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's completely different out there. Like I I didn't expect that like the dry heat was going to feel that way for me, but it was much nicer for my head than anything else I've had to experience. Like I friggin' hate the East Coast now because of the fact that I can barely breathe. And I keep thinking about how it was when I visited my sister, and I'm like, oh my god, I can actually breathe and I can sleep right, and there's no problems with me. Everybody says like go to Florida when you get older. No, I'm gonna move out west. Forget it. I'm gonna move out west when I get older.
Nice. Blue, number 2 for you.
My number 2 is Italy. I actually lived in Italy for 6 months, and just especially out of Rome, and it was probably like one of the best. Like we were over there for school, and I just have really fond memories of that area, especially Rome and Orvieto. Just simply kind of going back to what we were talking about with DC about having so much stuff to just do. You literally could spend your entire life in Rome and not see the whole place, which historically makes sense, given what, all went on in that city. But it's an amazing area. It's an awesome place in my mind. But yeah, so that would be my number 2.
Nice. Mine is really low key compared to both of yours. Because my number 2 is actually related to family, because I didn't do a lot of vacationing growing up, and if you notice, my number 3 was like a college trip with my choir. So my number 2 is, even to this day when we go on vacation, a lot of times we end up vacationing near family just because of finances and whatnot, because it's cheaper to vacation near family and you get to see them, so it's kind of like a double whammy. But my number 2 is Eufaula, Oklahoma, which is a tiny, tiny town in Oklahoma, about an hour south of Tulsa. And it is a lake town. There's a Eufaula Lake, which is down there. And it is a very large, winding, lots of different like ins and outs lake that I learned how to wakeboard on, and I've done jet skiing on it, fishing. I've done poker runs, which is kind of a fun thing to do, because you normally hear about poker runs being a motorcycle thing where you drive from place to place and you pick up your card, and then at the end you see what hand you have. Well, you do the same thing on a lake, and this lake is big enough. You go from marina to marina, and you turn in, or you pick up cards, and then you turn them in at the end and see what hand you got, and it's just a way to kind of cruise the lake in the afternoon. But my grandpa lives down there currently, and he is somebody who's kind of been always a major part of my life, and I like to go and visit him. He's funny. He reminds me of Sean Connery, and he's the reason that is my number 2 for vacation spots, all the way down in Eufaula. There's not a whole lot to do besides go to the lake and spend time there, but it's still good enough for me. Beard. We're down to number 1s, though.
Yeah. And first off, I got places that I'm mad about that I didn't get a chance to go. The first was actually when my family went down to Florida, different time period, and they went to the Kennedy Space Museum. Very mad about that because I would have loved to have gone. So there's number 1 on that one. The second one is when my sister had a chance to go to Tokyo. Would love to visit that. She was also on Okinawa Island. Had a blast while she was over there. She was there for 37 days.
Dang.
I'm not jealous at all. Anyway. But as far as my number 1 would be, I remember this one fondly from family as well, but it was Rhode Island. But it was a long time ago.
Okay.
I have been and when I say a long time ago, I mean I was 7, 8 maybe. That's the last time I've been. But it was just nice to go there because it was a completely different climate. And though there wasn't that much to do because we were up visiting family for the most part, it was just nice to get up there and go someplace completely different in a way. But even then, just like being around New England area is a very different experience, of course, from where it is here in in PA. Pennsylvania definitely is much warmer than what Rhode Island was, but granted, that was, like I said, years ago, so I don't know what global warming's done to it. Anyway, the biggest thing though is that it's a beautiful area. There's a lot of stuff that it felt more open and kind of alive in comparison to even what it was when I was a kid back then, to how it was here in PA. And again, I don't know how it's progressed, but I do remember that one pretty well. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. That is one like state I've always kind of wanted to go to, mainly because of how tiny it is. And I don't know why I really want to go to it because it's tiny, but it's always stuck out to me. And
Well, you have the benefit that if you go up that way, you can always go hop, skip, and a jump to Massachusetts.
That's true.
You've also got Connecticut up that way, and really you have Vermont as well, which isn't too far out. Besides, so between the few extra states that are like really close with the New England, really helps. But it's the coastal feeling of the way that Rhode Island is definitely different from most of the other areas in New England area.
Okay. Blue, what's your number one?
Greece. So while I was over in Italy, one of the places that we went was Greece, and we did a tour of the entire island, and Athens, Delphi, all the big spots there, and that's actually where I got engaged. So to have a chance to go back there and just kind of relive some of that, and then also just because that country is really pretty. It's just super. At least when we were there, it was super relaxing, and just really something that you can really get into, not being caught up with a lot of the insanity of the internet and everything like that, because they don't really care. I mean, that's a lot of the areas that we were in when we were over there was a lot of smaller town areas, especially. So that's just some fond memories there. But yeah, that's my number one, is going back and kind of getting to revisit the road that we traveled while we were over there.
There's a lot of places I want to go, and Greece and Italy in general are like Greece and Italy. I'm saying in general are kind of the two on the tops of my list that I'd like to
Italy. Go. I mean, like Italy, to kind of go off that, Italy has some of the most like diverse areas. Like it really does. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it in retro, like in big picture stuff, no, it's not like super diverse. Like you don't have like drastic climates or anything like that. But like culture wise, they have a lot of differences. Like, I mean, you have Pompeii, and Napoli, and then, Venice and Rome, and there's just like it's just completely different attitudes all together. And I mean, again, going back to I'm when I travel, I don't tend to like go out of like when we travel, I tend to kind of locate my area and then stick within it. So like when we were in Rome, that was really nice, because Rome is one of those areas when you're vacationing or when you're living there, you can literally walk the same like 6 blocks every day for months and find something new. Like nice. every single time. Like, I mean, and that was really cool. One of the favorite stories that I have from Italy is when we were out there, we had actually had a campus out in Dusante, and we would have to take the bus into the city whenever we needed to go into the city. And there was this big rock that we'd just all sit there. Like it was just a bench. Well, I was probably 2 or 3 weeks into our time there, and we realized that this rock was actually formerly a support of one of the aqueducts for Rome. And
that's cool.
Yeah, well, it is. But then you have to also comprehend the fact that we were using something that was older than the United States as a bench. I mean, like this, the significance and the I guess, or let me rephrase that. The insignificance of our time on this planet kind of gets hammered home when you start realizing that there are things that, you know, humanity has designed that are 2 or 3 times as old as everything that we kind of take for granted. And like,
right.
That's just that realization, just like, I mean, we got to do the Scavi tour, which is where you go into the catacombs underneath the Vatican. And like, just historically, you know, learning all about that and actually seeing it and actually getting to, in some cases, touch it, you know, it just hammers that lesson home more than you can read it in a book. You can, you know, do all this stuff. But like Pins and I were chatting a little bit in chat right now about Pompeii. Pompeii is very similar. You go to Pompeii and you are, it's an entirely dead city. Like it's you know, there's nothing living there. It's a big tourist spot, obviously. And it's just, you walk through this place and they have rebuilt some of it. They've also left some of it as they found it, and some of the stuff that they found were obviously the human remains from Vesuvius. And just seeing these remains on shelves, like, I mean, they're basically pieces of pottery at this point. And it's just, you know, again, that realization that really, honestly, we have been here for nothing more than the speck of a moment, is just a very heavy message and a heavy thing to kind of finally get kind of your hands around. So, but yeah, that's my number one to go back is Greece, just simply because of the memories that I have of that area.
Nice. You know, I think everybody's number ones are like tied into memories and whatnot, or just in the enjoyment. Because I mean, that's really what makes a vacation spot. It's not like what you're doing with it. It's literally like the memories that are made there. And mine's kind of similar to yours in so much that I got married in my number one, like the location. And that is Manitou Springs, Colorado. Julie and I got married in Garden of the Gods, which, for those of you who may not know, is actually free. You don't have to book anything for it. You can literally just show up and do that, and it's kosher. Like they don't ask for anything. It is one of the few places in the United States that is it's private, and it's remaining free to the public to be able to use because of this guy's will, which is kind of cool. But Manitou is really fun. A lot of my family was able to come up and spend that time with us, and we were able to hike and ended up moving to Colorado kind of because of how much in love we fell with Manitou and the environment around there. So that is my number one. Does anybody have any also Rans? Because I know I do. I think Beard kind of went into his. God.
Yeah, I mean, I do, but we'd be here for a long time.
Name one also Rand.
Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a loner. I don't like people in my normal mode. And so Alaska is freaking beautiful.
Okay.
It's super quiet, and it is, I really find the entire climate up there very fascinating, because it's got the jacked up day. So like you'll go like 12 hours or 14 hours of straight sun, and then you'll turn around and, you know, I think that's like the 6 months. It's also like one of the just like random trivia fact that I've always found interesting about Alaska. It's like one of the only place that like you get paid to live by the government. Like they basically are like, no, we're going to pay you because this place is crazy. I think that's just really interesting. And like, if you've ever been to Alaska, you'll quickly realize why. But it's just beautiful. Like, it's just a really, really, in my mind, it's just a really, from what I remember when I vacationed there before, and I was really little, so I don't really remember a lot. But again, kind of that sentiment of just like seeing like the raw nature of the planet, and just seeing kind of like, you know, what's going on, and realizing, you know, your place in things.
Yeah.
I mean, You could always use the excuse that you're just going to see Anchorage, Alaska, because that's where Bob Ross lived.
Yeah, but the challenge is getting to Anchorage, Alaska, because I mean, like, it's
Yeah.
Isn't it a seafare? Like you can only get there by boat type thing, boat or plane.
Plane, if I remember. I can't remember. I don't remember if it's Anchorage, but there is literally one area that like you can only fly in on an amphibious
Like a seaplane type?
You
Yeah.
have to fly. Like it's crazy. It's just a completely different way of life from everything that we're like, you know, in the I know it's technically
Continental.
part of the continental, but it's really kind of not. But like especially in the Midwest area, and we just take so much stuff for granted. So for me, like vacation's really about like pushing kind of beyond that and seeing different lifestyles. Wicked in chat says that they're from
Fairbanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I have a couple friends who are up in Alaska, and it's just like talking to them. It's just they're. I mean, the way of life, and they're like it's completely and utterly different. And I think that's just fascinating. I really just think it's fascinating.
Beard, do you have an also Rand?
I already gave the couple that I could think of.
Which one would you say would be your top out of those? Would it be Japan?
Probably, but it would be more Okinawa than Tokyo, I think,
Okay.
because Okinawa would be more a little bit closer to like what I would like to have seen of Japan, more like the older style, if you will. But in the same, I could say that about some other countries that are out there that are similar, at least in the the Asian-ish vibe.
Okay.
But I think that Okinawa would be a little bit more top of the list.
I learned a Japanese word the other day because a friend of ours actually works for a travel agency,
Yeah.
but that is few and far between and has nothing to do with the show. My also Rand. Don't ask me to say it on the show. That would be bad.
Okay.
My also Rand is actually the same as Penn's number one. It is Sedona. Sedona is a weird hippie-ish, but also Western-ish. Also lots of odd metaphysical things. It's just a cool, weird town that when Julie and I went on our first road trip together, we both kind of just enjoyed the heck out of, because every place we went, there was live music, and it was like all these retirees, people playing guitar, and it was adorable and fun. And there's a place called Slide Rock, which is a natural water slide, which is kind of cool. It's a river water slide that is just this slate rock. And that would be my also Rand as far as that goes. Because I think if any place I could go to and retire, that might be the place. But I don't know. But that is our top 3 vacation spots. And actually, Dolan was the one who mentioned, I think, the top 3 that I was talking about earlier about Twitter. And I think that would be perfect for next week, because that'll save the one I was going to do for the week after, which would be kind of Halloween themed. But this one is, if you were an action figure, what would be your top 3 accessories? What would come in the box with you if you were an action figure? So a little bit outside of the box for a top 3 for next week.
I like that one. That one's cool.
Yeah.
Favorite magic helmet.
That's a really, I like that. That's a really cool one.
I liked it a lot too. So thank you, Dolan, if you were the one who actually submitted that at first. Thank you so much. Again, you can reach out to us in all the different places: Twitter, Gmail, Discord. If you have creative ideas like that for top 3, we love and we enjoy doing these. So hit us up there, and remember, everybody loves a list.